Tēnā tātou katoa, ngā mihi mahana kia koutou, mahaloa lelei. Welcome to this webinar this afternoon, and we're delighted to have you here with us. My name is Graham Aitken. I'm a trustee of the Education Hub. At the end of 2019, the Education Hub allocated some funding, what we referred to as bright spots funding, to support schools and teachers who were innovating in particular ways to help teachers and learners. And Trish and Fay were successful applicants for one of those funds and have been working, as you've noted, on supporting neurodiverse learners at Coromandel Area School. So it's my pleasure to introduce Trish and Fay to you. Just before I ask them to introduce themselves, just to note that throughout this webinar, if you want to use the chat function, please feel free to do so. I'll monitor that and I'll direct those questions as they come through to Trish and Fay. And then at the end of the seminar, just to let you know that this will be posted on the Education Hub website, along with a report that Fay and Trish have written. So if you want further information, that will be provided there. However, without any further ado, let me hand over to Trish and Fay and to introduce themselves and to talk about the issue they were aiming to address with this work and then the process they have gone through. Welcome.
Kia ora, Graham. Ngā mihi nui kia koutou katoa. Ahi ahi Māori, ko Trish tōku ingoa, ko Ngāti Tama tōku iwi, ki te Waipounamu, ko Te Atiawa tōku iwi hoki no Taranaki, me te Waipounamu. I am a teacher and assistant principal at Coromandel Area School, and started this work though a couple of years ago when I was principal at Lake Rere School. And this is my wife, Fay.
Kia ora, I'm Fay Purdie-Nicholls and I am a teacher aide at Coromandel Area School.
So as Graham mentioned, we were lucky recipients of a Bright Spots Award a couple of years ago, and so we put the research that we've been doing over the last couple of years into practice in our new setting at Coromandel Area School last year. So our focus and our challenge was really looking at how do we get 100% of students achieving. So in the Rere Whakaitu setting and with the Reporoa Kahui Ako, we were looking and digging into how we as a group of schools and as a school system really strive to get 100% of students achieving. So really unpacking what equity meant to give all students the means to meet expected New Zealand curriculum levels and to do that work independently.
So, having said that, where does the neurodiverse focus come in relation to that?
Right, so we started digging into what was happening for students who were not achieving, were not engaging in learning in the classroom. And we recognised that we had a number of students that were identified as dyslexic. And so we worked with professionals in our area to understand more about what that meant, what was happening for children in the classroom. And as we dug further into that work and that learning, we came across the term neurodiversity. And it just worked really well with the approach we wanted to take to come from a strengths-based focus. The concept of neurodiversity recognises that people learn differently and that those differences are not deficits. So really we just started building on that concept from there. So when you as a teacher or as a parent start Googling and finding out more about dyslexia, it's really a lot of talk about cognitive weaknesses and about it being a disorder or a disability. So a really important part of our work was actually changing that languaging. And so we talked about cognitive differences and we talked about learners having their strengths and being sure that we really recognised them as learners and their capabilities, and that and make sure that we weren't missing out on their potential. How could we create places of learning that captured their capabilities, that allowed them to express their capabilities?
I think I know the answer to this question, but I've just seen a question come in as to how you diagnosed the particular neurodiverse nature of your learners, how you diagnosed whether they were dyslexic. I think I know the answer, but I'll let you give us the answer to that.
So I'll talk about the first part of our work, and then Fay will update you on what we're doing more now recently. So in the initial phases of this work, we were working with a spelled assessor to have children assessed, and we were unpacking, as we worked with children in the classroom, we were unpacking what those spelled assessments meant. So it was the Woodcock-Johnson 3, and really digging into cognitive differences around processing speed and phonological awareness, gross and fine motor skills, all of those sorts of things. But more recently, being in at Coromandel, we've taken a different approach.
Yeah, so we went from a school that had a lot of resources to diagnose children, and we had everything in place there. We came to a school that didn't have those resources. So my focus really changed. We stopped looking at diagnosing and trying to find a label for children, and just did more of, I went into classes and saw what was happening for each child and looked at what particular barriers they had. And so it didn't matter whether they were dyslexic or had dysgraphia or anything like that. It was those things that I was noticing in class, and you know, finding the barrier and then doing things to remove that barrier.
So perhaps just worth talking about what your role was, Fay, so that you were able to go into classes.
Right, so I was a teacher aide, and at this school I got what do you I got put in the role to do just that, to go in and like identify different needs within classes. Yeah.
So Fay worked with the AP of primary and with teachers across the primary school, basically checking in. She worked with them, putting together a learning support register, and looking at what were sort of the early signs for children in the junior level, what were signs that they might need extra support, and then at the more senior levels, from year 3, 4 out, we were using spelling data, writing ability, reading levels, and just general behaviours and engagement and learning in class from observations.
So having identified, having observed and having worked out what supports children might need, what was the process by which you helped teachers address that?
So I've actually taken a couple of different approaches. One, in this intermediate sort of area of the school, I've been working with teachers in class is kind of like an in-class coaching approach. So sort of modeling lessons of inclusion, so all children have the tools that they need to be able to reach the outcome expectation that we've given them for the day. So that's one approach, in class every day, and then the teacher slowly takes over, or we work side by side until it's running smoothly. The other one is that I go into classes and work either one-to-one with children, teaching them. Yeah, UDL, definitely. That's basically what we do. So that, and working in small groups as well, out of class. But yeah, not really, that was just sometimes that one, but really work alongside the teachers. So
you use digital resources too. Just talk to us about the way in which you've used digital resources to support.
Yep, so we right now we're using Chromebooks, which I really like. It's so easy for the children because they come with a reader and voice typing. So that's just a little switch you flick on. So all of the children in our school, nearly all of the children in our school know how to do that now. So it's really accessible. So we use earphones with a little microphone on them. That makes it much easier for them. Yeah.
So talk us through the handwriting. I know when I met with you, you talked about handwriting and how you talked through that with teachers and the distinction between handwriting and writing, and how you've managed to sort of work through some of those sort of notions that teachers have about that all children need to do handwriting.
Yeah, that's right. So firstly, the digital tools are part of the program. It's not a program, but they're part of the way that we work with kids. And one of the big pluses from working with digital tools is that it allows children to see their own capability really quickly. So using voice typing, they actually start to suddenly see their ideas appear on the page in front of them, and they have that affirmed, by teachers and other people as they share those stories with people. So one of the really big advantages of using digital is that it helps children see their capability quickly. So it really restores them quite quickly as capable learners. And sometimes, when as a child, if you're struggling to encode, you're struggling to make sense of phonemes and letters and sounds, then that's really, really important. So what we needed to unpack as we went was, so people were a little bit fearful around the use of digital in terms of the fact that children may not learn to write as a result of using digital. So what we actually found was that as children became more proficient with digital tools, they also became more proficient in their handwritten work. And some students do choose to do more work in handwriting than digitally. Many choose not to use voice typing for all of their work. They use voice typing for aspects of it, such as maybe a spelling word they don't know. There's lots of different ways that students use the tools. But what it really came back to for us was unpacking what is the purpose of learning, what is the purpose of that written work. And, it's really about expressing what you understand, how you perceive something, and what you want to communicate to people. So you're digging into thinking capability. So writing mechanically by hand that was the tool that was available at that time, and it was nice and efficient for testing and all that sort of thing. We could capture kids learning. But now we have digital tools available which are more proficient in lots and lots of ways, more efficient. So there's lots of good reasons all moving to digital. And it's definitely, just adding to that, it's definitely not just about giving kids the tools and saying use the reader app, use the writer app and go for it, because kids need a lot of scaffolding and support to actually be able to use those tools effectively, and they need to understand how they work. So that's where a lot of the in-class coaching that Fay does with teachers is around working with teachers to show how it works, working with students to become successful with the use of those tools. So they sit alongside a quality writing program and a quality teaching and learning program.
We'll come back to how this is organised for that in a minute, but there's a question. I don't know whether you can see the chat function, can you? There's a question just come through,
Yes.
quite a lengthy one, about a teacher who's working with a meth baby and trying to convince the school to at least get a C pen for him, just sitting doing nothing most of the time. I don't want to give up on him. Phonics is not enough. What would you advise? And somebody else who's asked about nonverbal autistic learners.
Yeah, there's a couple of things jump out at me on that. Fay's working with a child at year 5 or 6 at the moment, who gets in-class support, and he still struggles to recognise the letters in his name. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you're working with him?
Yeah, so I'm actually using the voice typing as a tool to help his speech as well, and that he's not non-verbal, so he is a bit verbal, but I'm finding that really helps. But thinking about the non-verbal one.
Yeah, so a C pen or any sort of reader app, any apps that allow people or students to engage with hearing text and stories it's definitely worthwhile.
Videos, do you know what I would do? I would probably use clay, modeling clay, get them to build little, images of what they want with clay, and then video it, use an iPad or something to video it, try and put some music to it, still telling a story.
You able to talk to us a little bit about the way in which the school's organised to enable you to function as a teacher aide, Fay, or how you work as a teacher aide? Because I think you've got a slightly different role than might typically be the role of a teacher aide.
Yeah, we've got 7 teacher aides at our school, and each do have different functions. What's your function?
Yeah, so I do, when we have the teacher only days, my job on those days is to get the teacher aides together, and we have a big discussion about what it looks like in a classroom. So I'm helping spread it to them as well, so then they can go out into the classrooms and do that. I guess it was just a conversation that we had with the leadership of how we saw it working, and they just trusted. They saw the data that we presented, they saw that it works, and they put a lot of trust in me to be able to go in and work alongside the teachers.
Yeah, so you're working with teacher aides. Some was around digital, some of that work is around inclusive, how we work with students within the classrooms to develop an inclusive classroom. Some of that work is, as Fay's already mentioned, around in-class coaching with teachers. So teachers had different things that they wanted to unpack with Fay. So would use that in-class coaching in different ways. So
there's a question come through about changing the mindset of a teacher. That's major. Would you agree? I suspect I know the answer to that question. And how you've worked through that, because you've worked through that in quite a sort of empathetic and supportive way. So can you talk us through how you've managed that?
Well, I think that right from even when we went to school, there's very fixed mindsets about intellect. And if you can read and write well at 5 years old, then you're clever. You know, that's what we're sort of taught. And then you go through school finding everything quite easy. And so we just taught that that's how it is, but it's actually not like that. Like, just because a child may not be able to get their thoughts down in writing, that it's they have an incredible brain. Like, they're often really, really creative. And so I think, yeah, I've gone off track. I can't remember what your question was.
Well, no, just to say that, Fay, that perhaps you're probably talking to the converter with what you've just said.
Yeah,
how do you convince others?
One of the things, so it's been a journey for us as well. Like, as we dug into the data and into what kids were achieving initially in this work, you know, they surprised us. There were children who we thought, you know, might be globally low, or whatever terms are used, but actually demonstrated to us that they were able to do multiple things at a time, but they did it in their way. So they did it in a really noisy environment. They did things with the videos on high speed, and often, you know, in a classroom environment, when you ask children questions, they freeze up, and so you really don't know what it is that's going on for them. So one of the ways that I think we're able to show teachers and change hearts and minds is through the evidence, is actually showing people what students do achieve in this work. So that is something that we would like to share with you. So
okay, so this was it's pretty self-explanatory. A year 7 male. He was diagnosed with ADHD, but there was most likely some other issues going on. So this was him finger typing on a device, and it took 4 periods of work, which was you know, half an hour each period. So that's a lot of work. So you can see that there's his spelling sounding out quite difficult, but he had some perseverance to keep going for that long. And so this is the same child with that same story, and I asked him to read it out to me and just turn the voice typing on, So it took him 3 minutes to read it out because he understood it perfectly. So you can just see the difference that made.
Wow.
Quite often when kids are reluctant to use the voice typing themselves, because it seems a little bit weird to them, it's you know, you use creative ways to actually get them using the technology, and when they can see what they can achieve as a result, that sort of helps them engage.
Again, we'll just flick through a few examples here. Year 7 male writing book. So this is typical dyslexic page or maybe dysgraphia, I don't know. Not many of these children were diagnosed because, like I said, we don't have the means, but it doesn't stop you from seeing that they're struggling to write.
So this also talks to some of the talk about issues with digital, because you can see that a lot of these children at year 7 and 8 have gone through remediation programs over the years. They've done lots and lots of sound work, letter work, word work, and you can see that they still have issues with forming ideas by handwriting. So enabling them through digital tools is just a massive positive.
Yeah, so this was only a couple of weeks apart from the writing samples that I showed you. So it shows that he's got the vocab, he's got the ideas, he knows how to sentence structure, all of it is there, except he couldn't get it out.
Yeah, that's another example. So if you'd spoken to that child in class and looked at his writing book, you wouldn't have realised how much he understood about forming a good story, about his level of vocabulary and things.
Yeah, so we would have been trying to teach a child that already understood all of the basics. And this is him again a few weeks later.
So with this story, he's even put a twist into it.
It's given it a pretty cool ending.
Mm.
So he knows so much about putting a piece of writing together, but and you know, while we obviously can't diagnose these things, but a lot of the things look like dysgraphia. So there's something that blocks him from being able to get his ideas down in handwritten work. This is year 3 child, handwriting. This was 4 minutes voice typing.
10 minutes editing.
How's the editing happen? Do they edit by voice edit too, do they?
Yeah, so when I'm teaching them to use it, we use voice to text to get the writing down, and then they use the reader, whatever reader app we've got on there. Right. So it reads it back and it highlights the words as it's reading it back to them. So they can see when it says the wrong word, they know to pause it there and change it to what it should be. So they can either type or, yeah.
Right.
Same student. This one, she just found it incredible that she could get all of this down. And so she just went because this is her next page. So she just didn't want to stop.
Mm.
And so this is completely independent after 10 months. And so she's writing like this every day.
So that's the aim, is to get to support classrooms, teachers and kids to use these tools so that the children can engage with whatever work is happening independently.
One of the questions that just come through, it's probably relevant, you know, can they stay in class? Are they in class while this is happening?
Yeah, so that's why I was talking about the little earbuds that actually go in your ear, and on the cord, they have a little microphone that allows them to stay in class. It's actually easier to use in a noisy classroom because all of the talking becomes a background noise, and then it can focus on their voice. Easy, yeah. Some of the children prefer to go out into a breakout space, which is the same. They don't need the microphone as much then.
Yeah, sometimes you will get kids working out on the deck or out under the tree outside the classroom, but it's important for them to be part of the class environment. So another aspect to this is that if devices are only used for children with writing needs, that can sometimes be a barrier for children, so they don't want to be seen to be the child that needs a device. So that's another part of creating an inclusive classroom.
Right.
I saw a question come up.
We just had a question come through to that effect, that can all children have access to this? Yeah,
so that's what we found. It really works if you introduce it into your classroom as an option for everybody, then the children who really need it feel safe to use it. And then also, if you start it from your younger classes, then as they get up into the older classes, it just becomes part of their tools that they use. They're not shy to use it, because we have found that some of the seniors are shy. I saw a comment before that seniors they don't want to look different. They don't want to be seen like they need help. But if this becomes normal, it won't be.
So years 7 and 8, we're finding that students are still open to using the digital tools, but year 9 and 10 up, they're starting to think the headphones look funny, and they don't want to be the student listening to videos and things like that. So it really does need to be incorporated more as the norm. And so, so students coming through from primary school with these experiences will be more likely to pick it up at high school, hopefully.
And what sort of reactions have you got from teachers as you've shared this? I mean, teachers who've been working with these children sometimes for a number of years. What are the reactions you're getting?
Well, a lot of the students at year 7, 8 lifted 2 levels. So really rapt. And so we're getting towards the end of these, but you can see with some of the types of vocabulary that are coming out and the way that kids are writing, what Fay does is she then shares these with lots of people, make sure the kids share them with people, so they're getting lots of positive affirmations around the fact that they're a good writer. Their whole self-esteem just grows really quickly.
Yeah, it really works to restory them. They feel they're not shy to share their stories in class anymore. They feel good about writing. They get excited. They run up to us in the playground. I think you would have seen when you came, they're just so excited to share their stories and their writing, because they are good writers. They're incredible writers.
So teachers, can see all of that positive buzz going on. Alongside these things, the kids are more aware of their writing goals. They're more aware of the strategies that help them. So they're actually also they become agentic, and they're taking on, they're talking to teachers about what works for them and what things they want to be doing in their writing. They talk about the wow words and the goals that they're working on. So lots and lots of positives.
I mean, there's things flooding in here all the time. It's hard to keep up, Trish and Fay. One question that I did want to come back to, that somebody's asked about how you deal with standardized assessments, EASTL and so forth, and whether you do, how you cope with that. You like to comment on that? Oh, yeah. Actually, don't leave. Yeah, leave the screen on. You've got, that's fine.
Yeah, that's right. So this is a reading STAR test over a few years. So this was a student that had their spelled test done at the end of 2017, and they were recommended a reader for reading. So that takes away the cognitive load of decoding. And so you can see that this student achieved at the top level of average with the reader throughout 2018. So what that showed us was that in class, and this was a child who, when teachers would ask him questions and things, it would appear blank. He was appearing not to be doing anything in class, very little written work done. So teachers really didn't know too much about what was happening. His mum wondered if it was a waste of time sending him to school. And but actually, given a reader, this was his actual general intelligence and capability, his comprehension skills came through. And so that started to show up in ASTL testing as well. So that was interesting. So things like, accommodations like mixed ability grouping, making sure you don't focus only on remediation, but look at what will work to accelerate children, and definitely what will work to grow their thinking at their age, at their curriculum level and things like that. It's just so important. When you see children who have just been involved in remediation for too many years or for many years, it does take them longer to reach higher levels of achievement. They just need a bit more support in place to do that. So ES still writing, we are currently questioning a bit. We're sort of moving more towards, and lots of schools are, towards progressions as a sort of fairer way to capture writing across the board and get a best fit level or an overall teacher judgment. But we don't rule out standardized testing completely. Sometimes it surprises us.
Right. Yeah. Somebody's asked a question about the word queue predictive text. Are you familiar with that? Is that something that you use?
Yeah, so we are, and we do have a few. I think word queue is actually assigned to a specific child. I think you have to pay. I'm not too sure about it, but I think it's a license fee.
You might pay for the app.
And so it is very good. Our RTLB swears by it, which is awesome. I try to use what's free and what's available to every child. So because that can also be a barrier once you're trying to if you're relying on licensed things. But yeah, very good. It is, because it has the predictability part of it. I mean, you can get that on the Chromebooks as well. On just a normal Google Doc, you can get the predictability option, but WordQ is much better at it. So if you can afford it, then do that.
So you're in an area school. You came to that as new teachers at the beginning of 2020, and you managed in a pretty short time to convince a school across multiple levels to engage differently with the children. Reflecting back on that, what are some of the key things that you think you have done, or the way in which the school itself has helped that happen?
Yeah, so the school, embracing it wholeheartedly was one big factor. So the leadership team basically opened up the school for, at that time, it was Fay going into classes and working alongside staff to unpack what was going on. That was definitely one factor. We also had talked to the senior leadership around the need for digital devices, and it was something that the board was moving to. So within a few months, the school had at least 100 Chromebooks. So that worked really nicely to move towards this. So just before lockdown in 2020, Fay had worked with a group of teachers around setting up Google Classroom and a Google platform for kids to be able to access their learning online. So that was really timely as well. 2020, the working online probably helped build digital capability across the school. And then I think Fay just working with kids one-to-one and teachers seeing the difference that it made. Not only teachers, teacher aides, parents, seeing the difference that made fairly quickly.
I think as soon, we had one class teacher, year 4, who had quite high behaviours in his class, and he was looking for something to help. And so I introduced him to what we do, and within, probably 2 or 3 weeks, I went back to see how it was going, and he said that he had seen a huge change in behaviour, really a big change in behaviour. So a lot more engagement. Children seem to be happier and looking forward to writing because they could do it. They had the tools to do it. So I think those kind of experiences helps with buy-in.
A couple of other things just coming through. One about how parents can help at home. Given you're using this assistive technology at school, how does that translate to the way parents might help at home? That's one question. And another one, in case I lose it because they're going by so fast, is your experience at secondary. because of course you're in a school where you do have secondary students, and that's quite a different experience probably. So which one of those do you want to take first?
So I'll go, you do secondary, I'll do the how to help at home. I think the biggest thing that parents could be doing at home is having interesting conversations and storytelling time with their children. I think taking the pressure of the pencil or pen out of it and just encouraging good vocab, good discussions, storytelling. It's fun, and it helps with their imagination. And if you're a storyteller, then you're a writer.
Yep.
And you do the college.
and the secondary, yeah.
Yeah, so secondary, we haven't had the same uptake with secondary students around the use of assistive devices. So that's of assistive technology. So that's where I need to look at more closely, and have been looking at more closely, around what we need to have in place so that things are happening better for our secondary students. So some of that is around teacher beliefs, and some of it is around, a lot of it is around how kids want to be seen by other kids.
Right.
That peer pressure. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Because NCEA makes it now possible to use assistive technology. That shouldn't necessarily be a barrier.
That's right. That's right. So there are a lot of NCEA exams offered digitally now, and it is highly likely that the new co-requisite for literacy will also be digital. So that will help. It's the listening to videos as a way of getting information, using voice typing. They're really unwilling to stand out in any way.
I would say breakout spaces, or working one-on-one with a child just for a short amount of time outside of the classroom to show them how easy it is to use. That's how I've managed to swing a few of the older boys into using it. It's going out onto the deck when nobody else can hear and just saying, just quickly tell me your answer, just answer these questions. And once they see how easy it is, it helps them. And they might not use it at school, but they'll probably use it at home.
Are you thinking, this is just an estimate actually, you're thinking that by having them use it more in a more normal, regular way in the primary classroom, that's likely to over time transfer up, or is it you think it's still going to be a barrier?
No, I feel like it will transfer.
Yeah.
But we do have to make sure we've got the systems in place, heading through. So we're lucky being in an area school that we do have, we can see how that transition is happening throughout our school and keep those conversations going.
And what do you see as the essential resourcing that needs to go into this? If you think about a school getting their heads around doing more work in this space, what's the key resourcing?
Teacher aide support is really important to get it going, and teacher aide upskilling, PLD.
Yeah.
It's really, really promising to see the ministry investing in that recently as well, with the recent MOE run PLD that's happening. So that's all heading in the right direction. And then the infrastructure around digital. So making sure that devices are maintained and upgraded, and you have headphones and access to apps and all of that sort of thing, as well as a person who can troubleshoot.
Right.
And of course, and along the way, teacher PLD as well.
But that teacher PLD, as I understand, is you're largely running yourselves. Have I got that right?
Yes. Yep. And another aspect to it is working with teacher aides and teachers to communicate more closely together.
Right.
And teacher aides as advocates for the student. So sharing with teachers what's happening, what the classroom environment's like for particular students. Opening up those lines of communication.
Yeah, and teacher aides focusing more on being sort of a rover around the class instead of working one-to-one with the student. That's a big part of it.
Just had a question come through, might be more for you, Trish. Can someone clarify, students who have computer for NCEA externals can they use these add-ons and apps for the externals in NCEA? Do you know the answer?
No, they can't. They can't use voice typing, I believe, and but they can have extra time.
Right. So maybe that's something to work on.
Yeah, I've had some good conversations with NZQA, and SAT conditions have been relaxed too for internal assessments, so they can be used for internal assessments,
Right.
just not for external.
Okay. Perhaps just one further one about the influence you're having beyond the school. I understand you've begun to work in the kahuiako space as well.
Yeah, so we gave a presentation at our beginning of year coal gathering, and that was awesome. It was an hour, I believe, with teachers from around our kahuiako. And then from that, we had a few teachers approach to see if we could show them some more, show them how it works. So I went down to a local school and worked in the classroom to show them what it looked like in use. And yeah, that was a really cool day. And I think we've got another day like that coming up at a different school next term.
Okay, so I don't want to add to your load, but just to remind people that this webinar will go up on the Education Hub website, along with a report that Trish and Fay have written. Actually, some samples of that impressive changes in students' work would be interesting too, if that's shareable, because I think
that's part of the slideshow. So.
Incredibly powerful, really. And then generously, Fay and Trish have agreed that their email contact will be available. So if you've got questions that you'd like to ask them, then they're willing to help and respond to those. But they do have full-time jobs. So remind people about that. Any last things you'd like to say, Trish and Fay, before we finish this?
It would be great if, you know, some of our students would be quite keen to share what they know with other students as well. So there could be space for that too,
Right.
for us to link up with other schools. So anything else I'd like to say? No, just I really appreciate being part of the Bright Spots process, to work through this work and have regular conversations with you, Graham, to pull all of this together. It's been a really important part of our learning, so appreciate that.
Right. Well, I can say that one of the things we wanted to aim for with Bright Spots was not only just to support a school to do the work, but actually to have that school provide resources and ideas for others. And it certainly looks like you've done that this afternoon, and we'll continue to do that. So I want to thank you both for your work. I'm sure the children at Coromandel Area School have benefited greatly from it. And you're back face to face with them full time tomorrow.
Yes, yeah.
Thanks to all of those who've joined us on the panel. You've been really engaged and interested. There's been a lot of ideas come through as well on the chat function, and links and resources too. So thank you all for that.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thanks,
thank you.
Bye-bye.